My name is Melissa Kelly, Senior Director of School Sports Programs and Staff Liaison for Special Olympics Maryland to the tennis program. Thank you very much for joining the pre-competition webinar for the 2017 Fall Sports Festival. This webinar is intended to give specifics relevant to the games as a whole, and then also for the tennis competition and venue. The PowerPoint presentation, which you should see online right now if you're joining by way of web, will be emailed as a follow-up to everyone who is registered in area county leadership as well. So please note that. Along with the email, you'll receive a recorded copy of this presentation, so look for that tomorrow morning. And if we have time, if time allows this evening, we will offer a question and answer opportunity through our chat option, which is, you should see in your pop-up screen for GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. Once again, my name is Melissa Kelly, Senior Director of School Sports Programs. Okay, just very briefly, if anyone's having trouble logging in, just wanted to pause here and give the option for the call-in information to join the session. Sometimes we do have some hiccups with the system, and also relevant to the learning curve for the new system. So just wanted to pause there. The agenda for this evening's presentation is welcome and introductions. We'll review the event information, or better yet, the games information. So we'll go over the general schedule, delegation check-in, opening ceremony, the venue map, and then we'll move into the tennis specifics. So we'll go over the entries, the schedule, the venue. We have yet another awards area due to some renovations and improvements there on the Mount campus. So we'll review exactly where that will take place, and then review the expectations with the principle of meaningful involvement and individual skills competition, rules updates and reminders, and a few miscellaneous items as well. And like I said, we'll open up for a question and answer by way of the chat system. So please do look for that in your GoToWebinar pop-up screen. The tournament personnel, we have a bit of likely changing of the guard next year. With that, we have Diane Michaelis, who is our co-venue director. Many of you know Diane as out of the Howard County program, who has helped lead this tournament for many years now. Diane also serves on our tennis sports management team. Diane and her family are anticipating a relocation to Colorado, and this may in fact be her last games with us for the Fall Sports Festival. So we are have drafted a succession plan in having the Mount St. Mary's head tennis coach Samantha Pinchoff serve in a support role, and or if we could be so bold, a co-venue directorship, so that we can hopefully turn the reins over to the Mount St. Mary's tennis program a bit more, so that they can lead the competition and such. Coach Pinchoff is also a former student of the Mount, so she's very familiar with the games altogether as a student athlete and a volunteer of the games. Myself, and then also wanted to welcome Nancy Van Winter, who is also a member of the sports management team. Many of you know Nancy out of Howard County. The overall event schedule is as such. I'm not going to go through every slide meticulously. Please do take the time to review it yourself, and then also check the distribution list when you do receive the email to make sure the right people have received all of the information. We do host these webinars in a timely fashion so that you do have at least a couple practice sessions and the opportunity to farm out this information to your family members, staffing, so on and so forth, so everyone's adequately informed and can properly prepare. So this is the outline for the game. So registration will open at 7:30. You do not register as a coach. You will have a head of delegation, so that information will be communicated to you from your area county leaders and or your coordinator. So a single person from each delegation will register as indicated there in the control center and collect packets and such. So please do seek out who that is. As of this morning when I checked our registration system, we actually were a little shy on the designated persons of who will serve in that capacity. So please do try to find that out yourself so that you're not scurrying around in the wee hour of Saturday morning. Competition is, opening ceremony, while this is really an exceptional opportunity to set the tone for the day, and we do strongly encourage and do appreciate everyone making every effort to get there to participate in that. It's really a grand presentation with a lot of recognition and highlighting the athletes and really getting them pumped up and motivated for the day. So please make every effort to make sure that your players are there in time, and that's a good opportunity too to check off who is present so that you can inform us of any scratches so that we can adjust our schedule, our competition schedule accordingly. After opening ceremony, there will be a dismissal process. We will be staggered in our dismissal, so please do be very attentive to the announcements because the tennis competition is very immediate to the opening ceremony venue at the not ARC Arena. We will likely be one of the last sports dismissed, so please be mindful of that and allow those who need to get to their venues expeditiously and that are quite some ways away, afford them the opportunity to leave and clear the way. Family hospitality will be offered in the concourse area of the, look for signage, pardon me, in the not ARC. So look for that. We strongly encourage family members to register. And then something new this year, the Young Athletes Program is up and coming. We're going to have an open house in the field house. This is for individuals with intellectual disabilities, youngsters aged 2 to 7, with and without disabilities, to come in and have a taste of the program, really see what that's about. It's a motor, a motor training experience, and one that would do our athletes quite a bit of good if we can have them active as young as the age of 2 and right up until they're at the threshold of being able to compete at the age of 8. Okay, we will have packets for head coaches if necessary at the tennis venue at the coaches meeting, coaches and unified partner meeting, which will take place upon arrival soon after, as close to 10 a.m. as possible. So please do know that and look for that. We'll hand those out to each designated head coach. And then at that time, please do make sure that your head of delegation is well aware of your scratches, but we may very well ask you to report those scratches once again at the registration or the control center at the tennis venue. So just so that we have those accurate and we, again, can adjust our schedule accordingly. Food service, so a free lunch will be provided to all registered delegates, athletes, chaperones, coaches, so on and so forth. We will do our best to make the lunches available as close to 10 a.m. As possible at the venue. Those will be boxed up. We solicited and collected lunch orders from each of the delegations. So we have those identified and will be pre-boxed and ready for you to pick up, and we'll make announcements to call you over. The luxury of the tennis participation is that we have 5 programs participating, so it's usually a very expeditious fashion. So please do listen for those announcements and recruit a few strong arms ahead of time to for those of you who have larger delegations. The event guide was emailed last night by the games director Steve Bennett to all area leaders, and then once again this morning to me, from me to the tennis distribution. So look for that email from me at 12:06 p.m. today, earlier today. Opening ceremony, please do take the time to review that and ask connect with your head of delegation if you have any questions about that. Moving on, the overall layout of the campus. We have a number of sports going on, and while many of us stick close to the tennis venue, we do want you to get out and support your fellow delegates and cheer on the other sports. So please, if you have breaks in play, make sure this is a great opportunity to get out and see the campus and see some other of the competition going on. So powerlifting is probably the most convenient, just a stone throw away in the arena where opening ceremony is. So for what it's worth, please do, as you can, get out and see some other sports, other venues. The evaluation, I'll touch on that briefly. We are very interested to hear what you have to say about this competition and the sport as a whole. So please do take the time to look in the event guide and complete the SurveyMonkey evaluation, and be candid about issues, good things, bad things, or otherwise that may happen. And if you have concerns, please do offer resolutions as well. We do review these, share these among the staff and the sport leaders, so please do take the time to complete those. Tennis-specific information, I'm going to pause briefly and check to see if Diane Michaelis is on the phone. Diane was hustling from tennis practice, so I'll pause there.
I'm here, but I cannot get connected to the webinar visual. It keeps asking me for a password, and I don't have one.
Okay.
Let me try again. I keep clicking on the thing that it says to click on, and it does not want me to join.
Okay, no worries. I'll just dive in. So, Diane, if you keep trying to plug away, and feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I've got the one you sent me previously, but I won't know what people are looking at.
Sure, no problem. The entry counts, we have a bit of a reduction from last year in individual skills with 11 athletes. And we have a significant jump actually in unified partners, if you see the totals there. So if you'd like, take the time. The depth of the event entries, so meaning the high counts in each of the events, I think is a tribute to all of us pitching in and being on the same page with soliciting those competition intent forms. So kudos to all of you coaches, and thank you for doing that. We want to make sure we have depth of competition, and that's what we seem to have now. So those counts are available there. Diane, Coach Pinchoff, Nancy, as a sports management team, member of the sports management team, we're actually all meeting tomorrow morning to review results, review qualifying scores or player ratings tomorrow morning, and we'll start plugging away at divisioning and then also certainly setting the schedule. So we're hopeful. It's always a long, tedious process, and one that we want to get absolutely right or as close to perfect as possible. So more to come later in the week, if not early next week. We'd like to have the coaches take a look and do a first draft, if you will, if they see any red flags in our initial divisions, and then we'll set the schedule. Diane, anything else relevant to the schedule you would like to touch on?
No, that's it. And I got my visual here. If you guys let me in. Yeah, no, that's and as we've done in the past, we usually run it by the head coaches just to make sure that there isn't something that, some red flag, something isn't right. We want to have really competitive play for everybody.
Yes, wanted to also mention that we are primarily focused on, certainly in the sport of tennis, the division lines and gender lines and that sort of thing, but also we are concentrating on the match results from the regular season, specifically the required qualifiers, and we'll move through those, and then in-house qualifiers, those results, but we do in fact use the qualifying scores, so those player rating scores as a modest determinant, but we do consult those as well. Diane, if you want to take this, I'm happy to turn it over to you.
So, as usual, we will do a brief coaches and unified partner meeting. If the opening ceremonies don't run the full length of time, then we will do that earlier. We'll do it as early as we can so we can start play as early as we can. And just something for coaches to review with their unified partners, and we will do this at that meeting, but the principle of meaningful involvement, the role of the unified partner to keep the play going, to make sure that the athletes have a lot of opportunities to hit the balls and that they can score some points. So that's really important, and just emphasize that to your unified partners, please. We have so many of them. And we will also be talking with the officials to make sure that they're keeping an eye on that as well. So I would say these times are probably at the very latest, that match play would start at 10:15. We will have, you'll see the order of play. We cannot tell you exactly what time each match will be played, other than the first one. We can tell you when the first one will be. We'll start the first 7, I should say, the first one on each court. And then after that, it's just as courts open up, we send the next groups out to play. So it just depends on how quickly they play and how fast things move along that day. The lunch will be available about 11:15. So you can have one of your coaches pick that up for the whole delegation and maybe designate a place to distribute that. Some of the athletes will be playing at that time. Some may have just come off, and probably a good time for them to eat, but please be aware of when your athlete is playing next, so they're not being called to a court and they're sitting off on the grass eating lunch. So pay attention to that. And you also don't want them to play immediately after eating lunch, too. Individual skills will break at noon. The matches will be, those involved in match play will just break for lunch whenever they can. And then the individual skills awards round will start at 1. So if you're going to take your skills athletes anywhere, have them eat lunch with the rest of the group, something like that, make sure that they are back where they need to be by 1 o'clock. Hoping for a departure around 4, and that's usually been pretty standard. We do the awards as the divisions finish, so we don't hold them all till a certain time, and it just depends on how many are in the division, how many games are played, how many matches are played, and when they finish up as far as when the awards are made. Usually the skills awards are done first, just the way it tends to work out, that they usually finish up before the matches finish. Okay, rain plan. Gosh, we hope not. Yeah, as Melissa mentioned, we don't have as much access inside the field house, and there were really only 2 courts there. So we are working on a rain plan, and we are just keeping our fingers crossed that we will not have to do that. If it rains overnight and the courts are wet, hopefully we can wait. We may have to postpone play until they dry out enough to be able to play there, assuming it is not raining anymore. So we will, we just have to be in touch with you guys depending upon what happens. But let's hope for nice sunny weather and not too much of a breeze. Those of you who've been there before, it's the same layout. We have 8 courts. We will have skills on what you're looking at, the court on your far left, down by the letter C. That's the gazebo. So that's where we'll have staging for skills. So there's a place where they can sit in there and wait to be called when just to that court that's right closest to them. The other courts will have matches on them. Usually the way we've done it is the opposite end where letter A and D are. We usually have level 5 there, and we usually have level 2 at the opposite end, and then kind of space them out that way. So level 4 would be sort of in the middle, depending upon how many matches we have. We try to keep the courts with the same level, but depending on the schedule, we may end up putting a level 2 match on a level 4 court just because it's expeditious to do that. So just pay attention. The athletes will be told they'll have an escort who will take them to the appropriate court for their match, so don't worry about that. Awards are going to be letter F and G, not G, the green part is staging for awards, and the awards will actually be at letter F, so they will be outside. So you'll be able to kind of watch the play and see the awards at the same time. We used to do them inside, and if you were inside watching awards, you couldn't see what was going on the courts. And I know a lot of people want to see both. That's important. So that's our layout. You can see there's really no shelter there. So we'll have to be in touch if we have rain.
Diane, can you talk a bit about at what point would one know that their division is complete and should proceed to awards?
We're going to have the posters, right? We have large posters that we post on, let's see, letter D is right at the spectator seating. The edge of the bleachers that is closest to letter A has a wall on it, and we usually post the results there, or you could also check at main scoring, which is letter A, the control center. So as you see scores posted, you'll know which divisions are coming close to being done, and you can also ask at the scoring table.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, as we said, the awards will be outside. I think that's going to just work a whole lot better. We started that last year, and I know a lot of people were a little confused, but I think it's going to be a good way to do it, and then you can kind of keep track of what's going on. Okay, principle of meaningful involvement, we mentioned that before. Unified partners, and unified partners are great. I just came from my own tennis practice where I was watching some unified partner play, and it's great for the athletes. They have a wonderful time, and it's a great way to keep the play going. So that's really the intention, and we realize ideally unified partners would be the same ability level as our athletes, but we realize that doesn't always happen. They'd also be the same age and gender if at all possible, unless we're doing mixed doubles. So just make sure that your unified partners, and sometimes it's the younger ones who get a little carried away and play to the best of their abilities, but make sure they understand that they are to, as best they can, play to the same ability level of the athletes on the court. We don't want them slamming a ball at an athlete, really having really hard serves when they're serving to the athlete, things like that. And we will call for that. The officials will give warnings, and there are penalties as stated in the events guide.
So one note, this is Melissa, one note regarding the principle of meaningful involvement. We actually do have 8 pairs from the Interscholastic Unified High School program that will be competing at the Fall Sports Festival. The coaches have been made aware of the interpretation of the principle of meaningful involvement in the community tennis program, but wanted to mention that to all of you as well, because you will see student athletes with their school uniforms on. So we're North County out of Anne Arundel County, and then Oakdale High School out of Frederick County. So they'll be distinct, but they are to abide by this as well. So wanted to make sure everyone is well aware of that. Please, all of the unified teams, all the teams from the schools are composed of a person with an intellectual disability and a person without an intellectual disability. So working to have more of the high school participants, both with disabilities and without, compete and take part in our mission. So please be welcoming, and feel free to chat it up with them, and cool. Make their coaches feel welcome as well. Thank you.
And if you have a concern, you see something going on a court, please raise that with me, or don't go directly to the official, but somebody on the games management team, or come to the main scoring table and just share your concern if you think that rule is not being enforced properly, and we'll make sure that it is. Okay, individual skills. We'll have 2 rounds. The first one is preliminary, and that'll be on site. We'll have them divisioned as best we can with previous knowledge, and then that will actually be used for the divisioning for the medal round, the awards round. These are the skills that they will be tested on: forehand volley and backhand volley. And actually, if you can go to the next slide, that's the diagram. Yeah. So the left X is where the athlete actually stands. The pink is the ball feeder. They stand on the opposite side of the net. They toss the ball to the athlete, and if the athlete hits it in the yellow portion of the court, and this will be marked, I guess, with tape. We'll use masking tape or something.
Yeah, we have a rubberized
so they know. Yeah, so if they hit it in that back portion of the service box, they get 10 points. The front portion, they get 5 points, and that's how it'll be scored. There will be scorekeepers on both sides of the court, so they call out a score, and if hopefully both scorekeepers see it the same way, but they'll have to resolve any disputes that way between them. And they call out a score each time the athlete hits. So that's for forehand and backhand volley. And they are tosses without a bounce. So they're tossed directly to the athlete, and they hopefully have been practicing their volleys. Two of the other skills are forehand groundstrokes and backhand groundstrokes. So on each of these, they get. So in this case, the ball feeder stands a little further back. The athlete is also further back, and they do that from a bounce. So the ball is tossed, it bounces, and the athlete hits by forehand. And again, depending upon where they land in the court on the opposite side of the net, they either get 5 points or 10 points. Same thing for backhand. There you go. So the athlete is standing further back. The ball feeder is still fairly close to the net. And then the final, not final because we have serves too, the next stroke that they do is alternating ground strokes. And what we're really trying to do here is get our athletes moving as they would in a game. So they're actually going to have 10 balls tossed, but they will alternate between forehand and backhand. The athlete will start in the center mark on the baseline, and then they will, not baseline, service line, and they will have to move to get to these balls. And that's the whole thing, is we're encouraging them to do that. After hitting a forehand, they should return to the center. They know they're going to get a backhand and then go for the backhand. But the idea is they're moving back and forth to hit these 10 balls. And the same thing, if they hit it in the front part of the service box, they get 5 points. The back part is 10 points. And serve, which, as we know, is sometimes the most difficult serve for our athletes to learn. They will serve from the service line into the opposite service box, and it's a diagonal, or as we were working on serves tonight, crisscross, whatever terms we need to do, but they will be told which box they're serving into. So they get 5 chances on each side, and either it goes in or it doesn't. So there's no 5-point awarding here. It's either 10 points or it's nothing, because it has to go right in the correct box. Okay. Proper tennis attire, depending on the weather, and we don't know what the weather will be like. Ideally, they're wearing shorts, the guys, or skirts. Girls can wear shorts too. It has to be appropriate attire. Pockets are awesome, so that they can hold a ball when they're doing the serving. Particularly those involved in match play should have some way of holding an extra tennis ball. We can't have blue jeans or khakis, things like that. They're just not appropriate. We need to make sure that they have the right kind of shoes as well. And if it's really cold, they can wear some kind of warm-up suit, but that's ideally they will all be wearing the same uniform and not have to worry about jackets and pants. Tennis shoes, yep, tennis shoes required, no black-soled shoes. The doubles teammates have to have the same uniform, or I will say similar uniform, because if you've got mixed doubles and the girl's wearing a skirt, we don't expect the guy to wear a skirt. But the same colors, the same shirts, things like that, so that's pretty obvious that they are a team. And it should be an appropriate tennis shirt, collared or non-collared, whatever is appropriate tennis wear. Okay, matches. We're going to do, and we've done this for the last several years, and I each time ask people what they think about the format. We do 1 6-game, no-ad set, and that's with a margin of 2 games, so they need to win by 2 games. We have not had very many tiebreakers, but if we have to have one, we can provide some assistance on that. So there's no-ad play, so if they get to deuce, the next point wins the game. And we will use 15, 30, 40 deuce and add game. Okay, coaches, we can have 1 coach on the court, recognizing that any given county may have 7 athletes or 7 teams playing at the same time. We used to say head coach only, but you can designate somebody to be in your stead if you want somebody to be on the court. They can talk to the players, do some coaching when they change ends, but not after the first game, and not during a tie break. But other than that, you can talk to your athletes. They can take, some time to get a drink of water. Make sure all your athletes have water, and you can talk to them a little bit. Sometimes it's more less strategizing and more trying to settle them down or make sure that they're focusing on what they're doing. But we don't want them to feel like they're totally alone there. So you could have one coach per court, but I don't think anybody's got 7 coaches.
Great.
Okay, so that's it for tennis. And if you have questions, I guess we're going to open this up for questions. And if you think of something afterwards, send me an email, write it down, and bring it with you. If it's a question you have, maybe other coaches want to know the same thing, and we can certainly bring up some things during the coaches meeting prior to the competition. Thanks.
Thanks, Diane. That was great. We'll just pause for a moment. So once again, if you could look for your chat option on the pop-up, the GoToWebinar pop-up. I just sent a note to the entire audience. If we don't have any, I apologize for not opening the phone lines. We've just had a number of, we have a number of people on the call, and commonly we'll have some background noise and interruptions and static and such. So please, this chat option is a great tool, so look for that, and we'll pause. To underscore what Diane said, are relevant to questions and concerns. So as the games grow closer, so does our time grows a little bit smaller. Diane does a really great job of staying in touch with by way of email and really all means of communication. So please do, however, look to utilize your local area county leadership. Those contacts were noted in my email earlier today at 12:06 p.m. So that those people can really get back to you quite quickly. And or the event guide is full of every detail relevant to the games too, so please do look through that meticulously. It was sent as a PDF, so if you're not familiar with Adobe, you can right-click on the document and look for the Find option. So if you're looking for tennis, you right-click and Find, or the table of contents is equipped with live links to go to specific sections. So I realize the number of pages might be overwhelming, but all of the information you need is there. So not seeing any questions. Diane, any last information for anyone?
No.
All right. Once again, everyone, on behalf of Special Olympics Maryland, the tennis team, and myself, thank you so much for a great season and all that you do to support the mission and especially the athletes. We look forward to hosting you next Saturday on the 21st at Mount St. Mary's University. And signing off, please do look for the follow-up email tomorrow morning. And once again, thank you for all you do.
Keep your fingers